Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday, and welcome back here. If you're new here, this is your Lunch Break Live with me, Ivana, and I'm going to welcome myself back, too. I was not here all of last week, so if you are one of my regular viewers, then welcome back. I'm glad you came back on this Monday, and again, if you're new, we're glad to have you here. So obviously, last week while I was out, missed a lot of news, missed a lot of really important stories and important developments. So I'm going to try to bring you up to speed a little bit this week on some of those stories. And one of those is something I think a lot of people are very concerned about, and a lot of people are talking a lot about, which is school and colleges, people coming back to college campuses in the fall with the coronavirus pandemic still going on. So we had a story on a Friday. I know it's Monday, but we had a story on Friday from our own Dennis Pillion. Dennis is here today to talk about that story, and it explains a new program called GuideSafe. And this program is something that was developed and is being implemented at over 50 colleges and universities in Alabama. And it is designed to bring back students to campus safely. And it is about testing all students and has a few other incentives here that Dennis will talk about. But first, Dennis, why don't you just give us a little bit of an idea about what the GuideSafe program is and when and who it was developed by?
Yeah, so really the concept for GuideSafe, as they said in the press conference Friday, was to kind of have a clean slate. You know, they know, cases across Alabama are kind of going crazy right now. There's a lot of spread happening in the state. But when they're still planning, most colleges and universities in the state are planning to bring students back on campus in the fall. And so when they bring all those students back from all across Alabama, all across the country, they're trying to minimize the number of positive students who come back. And they hope that if they catch a lot of these cases in the students early before they return to campus, that'll limit the number of outbreaks they have over the course of the semester. So the way they're planning to do that is the state, through money that they received from the Federal CARES Act, they are actually funding all of this testing for up to 200,000 college students who are returning to Alabama to take classes this semester.
Now, you say they're doing this for over 200,000 college students before they return to campus. Now, it's been a second since I was in a college class, but it's July 27th, and that means that these classes are going to start rolling out next month. I say next month, but August starts actually later this week. So college classes are actually probably a lot closer than a lot of us have maybe thought about. And this testing actually started yesterday, correct?
Yes. So yesterday was kind of the pilot day. They had, I guess, a soft opening, if you will. But they apparently, so this program was put together by a team that included UAB and the Alabama Department of Public Health, Dr. Michael Sag at UAB and Dr. Scott Harris, the state health officer, were the co-chairs of the steering committee that kind of designed all this. So the idea is that they have collected UAB, which is running a lot of aspects of the program. They've collected the schedules from all of the different participating colleges, and they are now emailing students based on their schedules when they're expected to return to campus. And they want the student to go to, there are going to be, when this is rolling, 13 sites across the state, kind of spread out, trying to hit all the areas. And there are going to be 13 locations. The students are going to get an email in their official university or college email address that's asking them to make an appointment. So they get to kind of pick the testing site that's most convenient for them. And they have a window of between 3 and 14 days from when they return to campus. And they're being asked to schedule a test within that window. So that'll be not so long that it reduces the chances that they go out and get infected after they take their test, but it also gives the program enough time to get the results back and let the student know if they're positive before they actually show up on campus.
So this program is essentially a very organized testing program for college students coming back to campus. Now, what about our college students that are doing all classes online or doing everything virtually this semester? Did they need to get tested before they start their classes back?
No, I don't believe so. I think this is only for the students who are returning to campus. And as you mentioned, different schools, different programs might have staggered start dates. And they're trying to take that into account as they have the students schedule these appointments.
Now, I know this is, there's a lot to unpack here. If y'all have questions, please let us know. Me and Dennis will get them answered for you. But in the meantime, while y'all are kind of learning this with us here, let's talk about the logistics of this, because 200,000 college students is a lot of people, and getting them all tested in that 3 to 14 day period before their start date is a very tight window. And there was a comment you had in your story from actually Dr. Michael Thag, and he said they were planning to test between 10,000 and 15,000 students a day over the next 3.5 weeks.
That's correct, which is a lot, and not all of those students are living in Alabama right now. So the other option, they have the 13 test sites across the state. They are also for students who either live out of state or for whatever reason can't make it to one of those test sites. They can request a mail-in test kit where they are sent a swab and some instructions, and they will actually collect their own sample and mail it back to the lab themselves. It's kind of an incredible feat of logistics, and they're also trying to organize all of that to where at the testing sites you don't have a line of people 20 deep waiting to get tested. You want to minimize that as much as possible, and that's actually. They brought in the Bruno event team, which they're best known for organizing sporting events, and they are actually handling some of those on-site logistics at the test sites.
That was definitely a name when I saw in your story. I was reading, I said, okay, UAB, Hudson Alpha, University of South Alabama. These are people that have teamed up to make this program work. And then I saw Bruno Event Team, and that was an interesting turn of events there. But it does make sense because they do have experience with logistics and with handling a lot of people at one time. Quick question from Edward, and I want to go ahead and talk about this because I think it's really important. And Edward says, these tests, are they only for major colleges, your University of Alabama, UAB, South Alabama, or do they include minor colleges like community colleges?
And the answer to that is the state has made this program available to every public and private college in the state, 2-year or 4-year. So any college can choose to participate in this if they want to. Most of them have, as we said, over 50, which is almost all of the 2- and 4-year colleges in the state. Obviously the colleges themselves can decide they're not being forced to participate in this, but it is there if they want to take advantage of it, they can. Most of the schools are kind of jumping at the chance to try and do all they can to minimize the risk of outbreaks in the semester once it starts.
And I know that over 50, you said, of these Alabama colleges and universities have elected to participate in the GuideSafe program. And keep in mind, these tests are free to students. It's coming from federal money. It is not coming from the students' pocket. So good question, Edward. Another question from Tyler, and I think this is interesting because Dennis and I kind of talked about this a little bit before we actually went live here. And Tyler says, can universities force workers at these colleges and universities to randomly test?
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to get a straight answer about that. I know UAB and other schools have said they are going to, they've said they're going to require it. I don't know all of the legal ins and outs and how that would work if someone did not want to be tested. I don't know how effective that would be, but they're certainly doing everything they can. UAB has the program, which they've also offered to other colleges, where they're going to require their employees to be tested in certain circumstances, and then to use a daily symptom tracker to log in, and you're affirming to your employer that you're not feeling sick and that you're feeling healthy at least. And then, so it's kind of maybe a little bit of the honor system, but you have to at least vouch for yourself and say that you are feeling well and not, trying to tough something out and go into work sick that could lead to a bigger spread, bigger outbreak.
And I think that's a good question, Tyler. And you bring up a good point, Dennis, saying, we have to. They are expecting employees to not tough it out when you're sick and going to work. I think we've all been guilty of that. I know I was guilty of that in, I guess, late last year. So I think a lot of people have that feeling normally, but in a pandemic, you must act differently. And that's something that these schools have really encouraged. And Dennis, you and I talked about how there was a comment in this GuideSafe program and in that press conference about how there could be more testing throughout the year for these schools that participate in the GuideSafe program. So say I'm a student, I get tested, I'm clear to go on campus. I go on campus. Do I get tested again throughout the semester?
You might. So they have what it's called a Sentinel testing program, which is where they're aiming to test a certain percentage of the student population, just as a sentinel, just to make sure that there's not asymptomatic spread or those kinds of things happening, and to try and catch people. One of the things with COVID is you can be infected for a few days before you actually start to show symptoms. So they're hoping to try and catch some of those early and not have people who feel mostly okay or maybe only a little bit off from spreading the disease to others. So we don't have a lot of details on exactly how that's going to work, how they're going to get people to cooperate, if it's just maybe something at student health centers that they're going to offer. And if you are worried or if you want to, you can just go get tested. We're not really sure how that Sentinel part is going to work yet.
We've got a good question from Misty, and I was going to get into this, Misty, but I'm glad you asked. So there was a comment in this story that Dennis wrote, and he was talking about pooled test results. Now, if you don't know what that is, I didn't know what that was until I read the story. And essentially, instead of testing all 200,000 swabs individually, what this program aims to do is to test between, I believe it said 10 and 15 or 5 to 10 tests at a time in a batch. And if that batch, well, I'll let you explain how this pooled testing result works, because you're probably more qualified than I am. But Misty, that was a good question because I had the same one.
Yeah, no, that was exactly right. And I had to ask my wife, the epidemiologist, how that exactly worked. But it's not actually something that's new for COVID-19. It's something that public health people have done for a variety of diseases for a long time. And basically, the theory is that when you're running the same test for a whole lot of people, and maybe only you're expecting 5% or so to be positive, then you can save lab supplies and save time. Say, if you take someone's sample that you get from them, if you give the nasal swab, you do both nostrils, so they have two samples there. So if you run part of the sample first, you can pool that with maybe 4 or 5 other people, up to 10. It depends on how many people they expect to be positive. But let's say you run 10 people's sample in one kit. If that test comes back negative, then all 10 of those people are clear. None of those 10 people have it. So then you've run one test instead of 10 tests, and you've saved 9 strips. You've saved 9 times running the sample. If that pool of 10 comes back positive, then you go back and you test the other samples for each of those individual 10 people to find out which one or which ones were positive. So if you're not expecting a whole lot of these to be positive, right, because these are, college students who probably, they're not experiencing symptoms. There's probably a pretty low percentage chance that they're positive, we hope. So if you do it that way, then you can save everybody time. You can get the results back faster. You can save those lab time, lab equipment, and that kind of thing. But as Dr. Sag said when he was explaining it, really, how well it works and how much time and money and energy you save depends on how many people end up coming back positive. So if only, say, 1% of these tests come back positive, then you're going to save a whole lot on those pooled tests. Say 9, if you have 10 samples of 10 people, you save 9 samples on each of those. That's a pretty good investment, and that can make some of these large scale testing programs work a lot smoother and a lot easier.
And in that same vein, if one of those tests from that pooled result comes back, or if the pooled result comes back as positive, then they go in and they individually test each sample to see which one is positive, correct?
Right. And they would have to do that anyway, right? If you ran each individual sample on its own, then, you would still have to run all 10 samples. But in the pooled testing, if you run the first sample with either 5, maybe 5 is more realistic than 10. So if you run the first sample with 5 people, then you can eliminate all those 5 people and say those 5 are negative, so we can go on to the next one.
Something I want to talk about quickly, and this is a kind of comment from several people I'm looking at. I think Tyler and Melissa make good points on this topic, saying, look, we'll test somebody, they'll be negative. They're college kids. They might decide to go out to the bars. They might go to a house party. They might do all kinds of things and catch the virus while they're out off campus doing off campus and non-school related activities. And then they bring it back to campus. What's being done to prevent that? And what does this program aim to do about that situation?
Yeah. So the big thing, obviously, this program, we're trying to slow down the spread. This is not going to stop the spread. This is not going to put the college campuses in a bubble where the virus can't get in. But so the idea is, if you have a scenario, a town, wherever, where there's a whole lot of virus, then that is going to spread really fast. This is, you're trying to kind of start from, like I said, a clean slate, and then hopefully you can fend it off as long as possible. I mean, to answer your other question, there are going to be, social distancing requirements in the classroom. Most campuses, I believe, are going to make masks mandatory. Again, those decisions are going to be up to the individual college campuses, so it's hard to make any blanket statements there. But it's, the idea is kind of a reset to get from where we are in the broader state right now to, back to where we were, say in March or April, where there were only a handful of cases going around instead of thousands of cases going around.
And there are several really good questions people are asking that I want to get to. And one person, and Shannon asks it, and I think Misty kind of alluded to it as well. There was a comment in your story how these will be, for lack of a better term, the simple nasal swab tests and not the more long, uncomfortable tests that people are seeing and have heard about since the pandemic started. So several people have said, look, are these simple nasal swab tests even accurate enough to test on a large scale? And if not, why are these being used rather than those long nasal swabs that we've been hearing about since March?
They say they are. They say that the more simple swabs, at first, this was a brand new virus that we did not know about at this time last year. We didn't even know it existed. So we thought that maybe we might need the nasopharyngeal swabs, which are the ones that feel like an ice pick going into your brain, or, what people say. But this is, as they're saying now, we've learned that these different kinds of tests are, I believe just as accurate. And so they're more comfortable as well. So it's just kind of one of the things that, as we are learning more about this disease, that includes, how we can test for it.
Another question, and this is from Melanie, and this is important because this was something else I believe that you mentioned in your story about this program. And Melanie says, if a small business employer wants to run this type of test or even work in a program, I'm sure like this GuideSafe program, is there a source in Birmingham or even across the state to do this?
That is a very good question, and I do not know the answer to that. I do know that they designed this GuideSafe program with the idea that they're going to run it first at the colleges and universities, and then after that, they're not trying to hold on to this. They're going to try to roll this out to make this available to some of the large employers in the state if they want to use it. Other schools, other institutions, we kind of look to. As more places open up, then, the state obviously wants people to be able to do that as safely as possible. And this hopefully will be something that they can roll out to other institutions, to other places as well. And that was definitely part of the idea when they designed it. They designed it to be able to, use it in multiple applications. This was never just envisioned to be just for colleges.
And so, Melanie, we hope that answers your question. And if not, let us know. And if we hear of anything else that is going to be offered in Birmingham or across the state like this, we'll have to let you know.
And I will say on that, the GuideSafe, I believe it's GuideSafe.org is the website. It's linked in the story there. But they have some more information there and some contacts of folks if you wanted to try to reach out to someone with the program and say, hey, can my business participate in this? Then that would probably be the best way to figure that out.
And again, that will be linked. That link that Dennis is talking about for the GuideSafe program itself will be in Dennis's story that we've linked here in the comments. Good question from Corterius. Corterius says, are the at-home test kits available for in-state students?
I believe so. And actually, I know, so they are, as I said, they collected everyone's schedules and they're trying to get this all worked out. They were mailing some of the in-home test kits to people who were expecting to come back very early, just because they weren't sure that the on-site test locations would be available in time. So I believe that when you get that email to schedule an appointment, there might be an option there to request an in-home test kit as well.
So Corterius, pay attention to, if you're a college student, pay attention to your college email and make sure that you're checking that email and looking for it. And if you don't get your email today, like Dennis was saying, emails are coming out at different times depending on when you are going back to campus yourself. So if your friend gets the email and you don't, just hold on for a minute. Another question I wanted to ask you, Dennis, and this was something I saw in your story. I'm going to read the quote itself so I get it right. You said that, quote, many schools will require a negative test before going back to campus. Yeah. Now, that is something that is a little bit, I think, surprising to a lot of readers, saying, well, many schools will require a negative test. Will all universities and colleges not require a negative test to come back?
Yeah, and again, that's kind of the nature of this program, right? Because the state is just kind of making this available. It's ultimately going to be each individual college and university that makes that decision. So, the program can't say because this community college is participating, that means they have to require a negative test. That decision is going to be up to the individual college, which is another reason why for the students and everyone else, they really need to be paying attention to their email from their college, because it could work a little differently at each of these schools.
This is a good question here, or rather comment from Johnson April. And Johnson says, I don't trust this. I would rather take my child to their own doctor. And I think that is an interesting point, because there were some talks about this in this GuideSafe press conference. Now, Dennis, what about those college students who say, look, I'd rather do it myself?
That is an option available. You can, if you can document that you got a test from a personal provider, that's fine. The state will not pay for that, though. So if you choose to go that route, you'll have to pay for your own test. This is the big advantage of this program, is that the state is paying for all of this with that federal money. Got
it. So and Johnson too, I know you said your child, keep in mind, right now this is only for college age students and college students. I know that I'm sure that my parents call me their child all the time. So I get that your child can be any age, but just so we make that clear, again, this right now is just for college students coming to campus in an Alabama school that's participating in this program. So if y'all have more questions, please let us know. I will get them to Dennis and get him to answer them. If he can't answer them, we will find the best person we can to answer it for you. So again, his story is linked here in the comments. You can find all of the information about this GuideSafe program there, and also get a link to the GuideSafe program itself. So thank all of you so much for tuning in today, for coming back for another week here with me. I don't think I'm going to get any more time off anytime soon, so I'll be here for a while. Dennis, thank you so much for giving us your time and explaining this a little bit more. And also, again, if you have more questions, please let us know. And for everybody, we will see you tomorrow.